How's it going, everybody? Welcome back into Debate Night. We have a great episode tonight. A lot of juicy topics that arose during the past weekend at the Champions Cup that we're going to dive into and maybe have some disagreements. We'll see. PDGA Mike has a lot to defend tonight. But yeah, let's just get right into things. Brodie Smith in the house.
Yeah, back at it. Top question or man of the people, top comments from last week. We need more fun questions like this one's final round. That was the most enjoyable segment to watch in quite some time. So shout out. Need more fun segments. I think that was the state one. The state one. Also, top comment. Let's go, Hannah. Hannah's starting to build quite a fan base out there. So watch out. And the final one says, I think there is a bit of a disingenuous disconnect between Abby Wilson claiming she was afraid of for her safety and just wanting to make a conservative political statement. So, you know, we can't hide away from the political comments, even over here in the disc golf world. It's everywhere.
You never could. Hunter is here as well.
Yeah, I'm slightly injured. Don't know if I'm hurt or injured. We're going to find out after the show. Going over to my sister. She's a doctor. Either got a dislocated rib, sprained back, who knows?
He coughed.
I coughed while carrying a box this morning, and that's a good sign that I'm getting old. This back straight gone. Just gone.
That's just awesome. Mike is here, back healthy, I hope.
Very healthy. Yep. Pride a little hurt, you know, standing with the PDGA, but I didn't see an official statement, so I guess mine's going to be as official as it gets. I'm not sure
whatever you say.
I'm not sure they're going to like it, but we'll see.
We're going to post it quote card on behalf of the PDGA.
Mike.
Yeah, they'd love that. And Ross is here as well, joining us.
Yeah, happy to be back. Got an 8 here actually this weekend coming up at Maple Hill, which was just out practicing for us. So super excited about that, and super excited to talk about some disc golf.
Must be cool to live near Maple Hill. That must be nice.
Yeah, I'm not jealous at all.
That's great. Right now, without New London, it's like, you know, we still have courses, but nothing premier like that. All right, well, let's just jump right into things because we've got some stuff to go over, and we're going to start with probably the biggest topic of the weekend, with the foot fault that has been making news everywhere. So here's my question. Can a bad call be good for sports? The Kristen foot fault call generated tons of hype around the live broadcast and the FPO division. So it was a little of a bad thing, in fact, a good thing in this case. Brodie, what do you think?
No, it's not. And I would love to hear someone's argument on why they think it is. We're going to talk about a little thing called house rules. I'm sure all of us have gone over to someone else's house, pulled out the Monopoly board, ping pong, whatever game it is, there's always been some sort of house rules. Now, the reason why those house rules are important and the reasons why people say, hey, this is how we play the game before the game actually starts is so everyone's on the same playing field. Everyone's playing the game fairly. And so everyone can actually put in their effort and feel at the end of the day that they didn't get screwed. Now, you might come at me and your argument might be like, well, Brodie, there's officials in other sports and they get calls wrong all the time. That's not a good argument. Why? Because players going into those games know that's the case. They know that the human error is going to happen because these people are making dozens of calls throughout a game or dozens of missed calls throughout a game. That is an element of the game that everyone agrees to when they go and play. The issue here is Kristen Tatar and others Kristen Lott and others did not agree to this. This is not something that we see. The only other time we've ever seen this on a broadcast, and I know there's people out there claiming this happens all the time. Screw you. No, it doesn't. Stop that. Stop that propaganda crap. No, it doesn't. It doesn't happen all the time. This is not the same as a bunch of people coming together, looking at a disc, looking at a line, being like, I don't know, is it in? I don't know, is it out? I don't know, is it in? This is literally someone coming up and saying something. The only other time we've ever seen this is the Nico situation, and that's when it should happen. It should happen on the pace of play. That is something that is across the board, super easy to see. This is not one of those times. It should never have been called. It never gets called. Spoiler alert, Marweed stepped on his disc, his last approach shot on hole 18. Where was the Marshal there? That was the lead card. Spoiler alert, no one else was on the course. There was 4 people throwing. That was it. If any time there was going to be a call, you could have a marshal on each person on that because there was no one else. Otherwise, they're on vacation. And this whole idea that these guys are roaming the course looking at, no, they're not. They're not doing that. So stop.
All righty. Now that that's on with, anybody dare oppose him? Hunter.
First off, I agree with every word Brodie just said. I just don't think Brodie really answered the question because I disagree with
I said no at the very beginning.
Yeah, I say yes. I think it was a terrible call. I agree with everything Brodie just said. And as you'll find out when I'm first going to go in the next question, I don't think we were harsh enough. So we'll get there in a second. But why I'm saying yes is because what this did do is controversy generates a lot of views and a lot of eyeballs. And what disc golf is always in need of is eyeballs. Now, this isn't necessarily eyeballs from the outside, but what we've talked about is disc golf viewership has either stalled or declined as people from COVID have gotten out. A lot of those people still follow disc golf accounts. And you aren't going to be going on social media or on Facebook or on whatever, and you're not going to be able to go there and not see a disc golf account if you follow them posting about this situation. So what that does is it generates a lot of hype and interest about a tournament that was ongoing. Live disc golf Twitter has not blown up like that maybe since the Holy Shot. I don't even know the last time live disc golf Twitter was absolutely popping like that. And what that does is it at least makes you feel a little left out, which when you feel a little left out, you're a lot more likely to tune in and see what is this fuss is about. So I think that can a bad call be good for sports? Absolutely. The other thing that a bad call can do is if it was an organization other than the PDGA, they would be looking into this saying, what can we do to make sure this doesn't happen again? Because now maybe they can regulate the marshals. Maybe they can they got to do something because this was a terrible call. So it can actually end up being good because maybe it causes regulation. In the moment, it probably brought more eyeballs to the live coverage. So overall, yeah, a bad call I think can be good for sports, even though I agree it was a terrible call.
Okay, split opinion so far. Mike, where do you stand?
Yeah, well, I mean, I agree with everything Brodie said, but he proves the point that it's great for sports because we wouldn't have got that outrage and tyrant without the call, right? So if you guys clip that up and you put it on your Twitter, on your YouTube clips, that's going to get more views than a nice calm someone talking about how great the tournament was. I mean, it can be great for sports and visibility sense. Anytime you see the masses talking about FPO, it's a good thing. And I mean, it's a bummer it happened to Kristen again. And there can be just flat out bad press when you think about like the driving range fiasco or Kristen's caddy stuff a year or two ago. But when it comes to sports, drama is exciting and engaging, whether you want to admit it or not. And as long as the call isn't, as long as bad and egregious calls aren't the norm, and at the moment they're not so far, every once in a while, to stir up the public, it's not hurting anybody, again, other than Kristen. And then the other point is whether we like it or not, like this needs to happen to keep rules reasonable and optimal. And again, whether or not PDGA does anything about this, I don't know. But I mean, look at the tuck rule in the NFL. Like everyone knew it was a pretty bad rule. Everyone knew it didn't make a ton of sense, but it took a team literally losing a playoff game because of it to get that rule changed. And so, you know, I think that it kind of leaves a bad taste in your mouth as a fan, but as someone who's a fringe fan or someone who wasn't watching live, this is going to bring people into the sport.
Foot fault and the tuck rule might be a great analogy there. Ross, what did you think? Do you think that this is good or bad for disc golf in the FPO division?
I'm gonna have to agree with Hunter and Mike. You know, I think any publicity is good publicity, and especially in terms of social media. And there's way more people that are following, you know, various social media pages, and they are tuning in every week to or onto DGN. And I forgot who said it, but the idea of the FOMO effect of missing out on something live, similar to like the Holy Shot. Like if you're watching that live versus if you were, consumed it after the fact or just saw the clips, like maybe that incentivized people to watch live disc golf after the fact. But more big picture, I hope, you know, the worst of this is the worst side of this is that it just makes the PDGA kind of, and it's another embarrassing, you know, moment for our governing body. I really hope that we could look back 5 years from now to where, you know, whether it's the Disc Golf Pro Tour has its own set of rules and, you know, other tiered events have their own set of rules. Whatever change may come from this, hopefully there is change that comes from this. Hopefully can, make the sport more professional, help the sport grow, and also the sports betting aspect of it. We are so freaking lucky that this was not an event that people could bet on. If this was, we've talked about the influx of revenue and possible publicity that sports betting brings to disc golf. If this was an event that there was betting on, it could have, those relationships could have been ruined, which are just starting out.
No doubt. 3-1, Brodie. Opposed.
Yeah, I mean, the question was, can a bad call be good for sports? Not is people that know what disc golf is, are they going to engage with content now seeing this? That wasn't the question. Like no one outside of disc golf is now being like, oh, Kristen Lott got a bad call. Let me look into what disc golf is. If anything, they're seeing this and being like, wow, that sport can't figure out their self. Like, I don't see how this is good.
I think that's the wrong question, though. It's not because we're not trying.
Can a bad call be good for sports? It's not good.
Interpreting
the word
good pretty
players.
specifically.
There's a second part of the question.
It's not good for the players. Can we all agree on that?
Read the second part of the question.
The Kristen footfall call generated tons of hype around the live broadcast in the FPO division. Yes, I agree with that. A lot of people were talking about it.
I'm saying that's what Trevor was asking. Is a little bit of a bad thing a good thing?
No. The first question was literally, can a bad call be good for sports?
Yeah,
well, you're just interpreting good as good for the growth of the sport, but that's just one way to interpret it. It could be good for just the sport, the hype of a live broadcast. Like,
well, but also to Mike's point, and I think I made this point too, but Mike drove it home a lot better. Of it can cause the change of rules, which I think is also good. Because it highlighted, hey, the fact that call was technically the right call is crazy. Like the fact that was like technically the right call by the rule, like that's great because now hopefully the PDGA will actually look at it and be like, oh, I still think the fact that the Marshal can just step in, say foot fault, and literally dip, he's off the card, and someone just got a stroke immediately is crazy. Like that can't be a rule, but it is.
I don't see. I just think that's disingenuous to what the question's asking is, you're basically saying we needed something terrible to happen for it to be fixed.
Sometimes.
In disc golf, yeah. If the PDGA was a super proactive organization that was like looking ahead and wasn't always reacting, I'm surprised they haven't come out and said that Kristen was a jerk for how she responded yet. That's normally their play.
Yeah, I don't. That is true.
No organization or institution is proactive. It always takes something bad to happen for there to be changes to be made. Obviously, this example is not even close to similar, but the NFL knew of CTE long before that movie came out. It took that movie coming out and the bad press for them to start making changes. I also don't think the premise of like outside of disc golf is what we should be thinking about. It is the people who play disc golf casually and aren't tuning in.
Is this app? I don't think they're going to tune in after this. Is this app the holy shot? Yes. This no. Is this apples to apples saying, like, if you question this, saying, does a good stabbing? Do we need a good stabbing to happen at the sport for the sports? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, do we need someone to get stabbed? Yeah, that's a bad thing. But you know what, Hunter? Now the Disc Golf Pro Tour is going to look into the security and say, you know what? We probably should do back checks. We probably should have metal detectors.
I made that point last year there was the whole threat. I was like, well, you know what? Like when that whole threat went down in Music City, no one was hurt. I was like, this is honestly the best case scenario for the Pro Tour because now it made them actually question their securities without anyone having to be hurt. Because
you see my side of the argument of like, it's hard for me to say. I don't think it's
apples to apples because we're looking at a foot fault versus someone dying.
That's a pretty big straw man argument because like you're breaking rules by stabbing someone. Like by definition of the rules right now, this was not a bad call. This was following the rules.
Saying. I see. Right. And so my point was just, do we need something? Does it make sense to say something is good simply because we need something bad to happen to make it good?
It doesn't necessarily mean it's all the way good. It's more so that there is a silver lining, I guess. That could be one way to think about it. Anyways, we're going to talk more about this. Let's move on. So my next question regarding this is it slightly harsh to bombard the PDGA Marshal who made the Kristen call when many fans have been calling for exactly that? With a rule that exists in a gray area and a call that was arguably correct, did we get exactly what we wished for here? Hunter?
No. No, not at all. I don't know of a single fan that has ever asked for what we got. I don't think anyone's ever said, I wish there were marshals out there so that when a player slips down the stretch, they can call a foot fault that they have no business calling. There's been plenty of fans, I'm one of them, that say we want marshals out there for the Adam Hamez OB call situation, for the Nico LaCastro time violation situation, for the Gannon Bird time violation situation, for the cupcake Drew Gibson time violation. We want marshals for that. But the fact here that a PDGA marshal is allowed to walk up, I don't know how long they were with the card, but I've heard that as soon as this call was over, they left the card, and they can say, foot fault, stroke penalty. You can't question me. You can't second it. No, I didn't. I can't 100% say the disc was out of your hand. I don't know 100% this rule. I don't know, but I'm 100% confident giving you a stroke and making sure you're out of this tournament. Deuces, by the way, I'm out of here. And that's allowed? That's crazy. I mean, honestly, the fact that he only got bombarded how much he did is wild. I also don't think anyone's saying he's a bad person. He's not a bad person. He just made a really bad decision and a really bad call. And I think that, it probably was the thing where he said foot fault. He got kind of embarrassed because he started getting questioned on it. And, you have his fight or flight kicked in and he fought first and then flew out of there. And he kind of did a little 1-2 punch with it. But no, I think this is a terrible call. I don't think it's what anyone has asked for. And people who are like, well, you wanted marshals on the course, this is what you're asking for, has either never watched sports or didn't understand what anyone was asking for.
Hit him with it. Mike, where do you see the line with this whole marshal thing? Do you agree?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. No one was looking for someone to look for foot faults. It was the other stuff. But this was mishandled by multiple people. And, I'd be willing to bet money this marshal plays MA1. Because that's the only type of person that'd be comfortable even considering making this call. In sports, you can find a penalty or violation like every single play. In the NFL, there's a hold every single play. In the NBA, you can call a foul on a drive in the final 2 minutes every single play. But most of the time, they swallow their whistles and let players decide the outcomes. And we can be as harsh as we want to, because as far as I know, I think that Marshall's getting compensated. And truthfully, there needs to be an investigation into him and Phil D, I can't pronounce his last name, and the PDGA just on how this was handled. And I'm not saying that he did it in malpractice, but more so an investigation as a whole of like how this happens the way it does. The fact that he out loud admitted, I don't know if the throw was before she touched the disc, is wild. And at that point, anyone with common sense should just concede, maybe you're right. Maybe I shouldn't make that call. But also, and even more importantly, because he's higher up on the totem pole, Phil, dude, like you're getting paid by both the Disc Golf Pro Tour as the assistant director and the PDGA as the director of competition. Have some courage. Like, you heard the conversation afterwards. He hears the marshal admitting he can't see both at the same time, and he has the power to fix this, and he just stands there and doesn't say a word. So, overall, like, and I don't want to be a victim blamer here, but also it was kind of strange to me that everyone were willing to have a conversation longer, and Kristen kind of like got emotional and stormed off right after, where I think at that point everyone was kind of agreeing with her, and I think something could have been done about it. Not saying it's her fault, but I thought that was interesting. All in all, we can be as harsh as we want to, because again, the PDGA finds a way to muff something up. And I again, not so much on the marshal. He just made a call, and if it's wrong, it's wrong. But the people above him need to step up and do the right thing at that point.
Yeah, it is interesting that there was just like this kind of game of chicken to see if anybody who would actually step in and overturn it or make a change there. Ross, how did you see it? Do you think that we got what we were asking for at the marshals, or more than we bargained?
Yeah, I definitely don't think this is what people were asking for. If people were asking for this, I'd like to have a stern talking to them. I don't even think, I think the prompt says like arguably the correct call. I do not think it was the correct call whatsoever. I don't think in real, people were doing the frame by frame slow motion. Disc golf does not have video evidence. You can't use video evidence, so it shouldn't even be used in this conversation. It's only with the naked eye in real time. I don't think you could make that call beyond a reasonable doubt that she did foot fault, and even as he admitted. I will say, though, once the words left his mouth, foot fault, he could not go back. If he allowed himself to, the way the rules are set up now, if he allowed himself to be pressured by the card into overturning the call, and Kristen went on to win, let's just say, the butterfly effect of that would be, probably the outrage would almost be worse to where people would be very sympathetic for Missy, and maybe the situation that would have put her in. So I don't know if I necessarily agree with, in the moment, someone from on high who didn't witness the event should have been able to, what the heck is on me? Should have been able to, change that call. Once the way it's set up now, once those words left his mouth, there was no turning back. But it was just the wrong call. I don't think there's like any two ways about it. I think, we should not be using video evidence or using the slow-mo to try to justify the call. He was just wrong.
Yeah, it is a weird one where like I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure there is a road back once you say it. I wonder if he was looking around, hoping that somebody would overturn it for him. Brodie, wrap it up for us. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't have that much more to add that the guys haven't already said. I think we all agree on this. I think majority of people that watch agree on this. I think if you are going to call a foot fault, and again, I'm advocating not for the marshal to step in and call it, but a player to actually make that call. They got to be stepping on the disc, literally like stepping on the disc, aka Andrew Marweed, or they got to pull like a Ricky Wysocki back when he was playing Vista with Nico, where he's like 2 feet off to the edge to get like a much better angle. I don't know if you guys remember that clip. Those are the only times you call it. Anytime like this, it's way too close to call. No one calls. It's the same thing as a step putt of where some people are like barely landing and getting the disc off. You just don't call it. It's too close to say. However, the one thing I do have to add is I did go undercover one time and got a job at the PDGA because I wanted to see kind of just how they ran things. So I went undercover, got a job, and the first week they come in and they take you through orientation. And the first thing that they have for orientation in big bold letters is how to double down. And we spent like the next couple hours about we're always right, even if a ton of evidence comes that proves us wrong, we double down, we stand 10 tones down or whatever the kids are saying nowadays, and we don't budge. And we just do that. And once I saw that, I was out. So I didn't actually end up taking the job. But yeah, that's all I learned.
Yeah, it's certainly like, it is funny to talk about like the, maybe bright side of things. We're like, well, maybe the PDGA will, they have an opportunity to like own up to this. It's like, no, they're not. Like, of course they're not. They never have, and they never will.
I do want to. I am a me. I'm still here.
Okay.
Camera's just gone. Camera's gone.
That's okay. The me is funny.
I'm assuming I can still come through. I can hear all of y'all.
Yeah.
I did want to just clarify. I'm wondering if the PDGA maybe attacked my camera because I was about to say this, and then out of nowhere, this all just went. I did want to just highlight, I don't believe Phil Delaunay still works for the Pro Tour. I think he's exclusive with the PDGA now.
Oh, yeah, I think that is true.
I'm pretty sure he left as assistant tour director to become the like head of competition. Mike's point's still valid. I just didn't want the Pro Tour to get drug into something that they might not actually be a part of.
Pro Tour sleeper agent, Hunter Thomas.
Yeah, that's fair. And he did have a PDGA polo on, so that would make sense.
So now Hunter might be DGPT Hunt.
He might be.
I'll take that name.
Everybody... Gross, dude.
And Ross makes a good point that like once you make that call, like you can't really tiptoe back.
Yeah, like I think Hunter said like the fight or flight thing. Like I agree. I think it came out of his mouth and then it was just like,
he might have like thought it was like that's a foot fault and like did I say that out loud?
Like that. I do not. I think the second. Oh my gosh, why does my mic keep getting hot? I think the second he said it, like he regretted it instantly. Like
what he could have done to save face is literally say, "Never mind." And then just run off, and no one, he never would have gone on coverage. So the only people that would have known who that was like the few people that were there.
No, when Kristen turned, he should be like, "Good shot." What do you mean, foot fault? What foot fault? No,
I didn't say
good
foot
shot.
fault.
Good shot. It was yeah.
What sounds like foot fault? What could he have subbed it out for? I didn't say foot fault. Not even gonna try. All right. Let's pivot away from that because I think everything that's going to be said on that topic has been said, and we'll just see if anything happens at this point. But we want to talk about Swenson Park a bit because I think there's some interesting things to discuss with this venue. All right, so Swenson Park proved a great stage for the theater that was Champions Cup this past weekend, mostly hushing all the talks of the wooded major injustice that have surrounded the event for months. Did this venue perhaps make a statement that open courses with more OB will always make for better disc golf than the woods due to its level of success here? Mike, what do you think?
I don't know that it really proved anything other than the fact that fans just want well-designed and thought-out courses. I mean, whether we like it or not, as long as the Disc Golf Pro Tour is in charge and probably any other entity, these are the types of courses we're going to be moving to. It makes more sense from a broadcast perspective, from a fan perspective, and truthfully, just having way more options as a tour to have different opportunities for courses if you can just add OB to these openish areas. And I thought the course did do a great job of giving some woodish feels on low ceilings, especially if there was a hill and then a low ceiling where you had a really small margin of air. And you saw a lot of people getting the hyzer angle wrong and flaring it up into the trees or down into the hill. So it kept things interesting and didn't feel wide open. And not all golf courses and open courses are created equally. And I think that this week was an example of that. And let's be fair to the Pro Tour. They never really told us this was going to be the wooded major. We just kind of all decided it. We kind of bullied them into it. And, they made that last comment where it's coming back to the wood. So I guess it sort of worked. But I do think they need to figure out an identity for this major, and whether it's the wooded major or it's the hardest major and the toughest courses and the toughest conditions. But it just needs to be well thought out. And as long as these courses are fair and they provide drama, then people aren't going to complain whether they're wooded or open.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough. Good points there. Ross, what do you think? Do you think this was a proving point against the Woods or not?
I don't think so. I think this is actually kind of a dying venue. If you look back at the tour 4 or 5 years ago, you had Las Vegas on a golf course, DDO on a golf course. Now this year, it's just this event and then Portland are the only two events, which Portland is now half at Milo and half at Glendoveer. Only two events are going to be on an actual functioning open golf course, whether that's for financial reasons or because the tour is really kind of honing into the Pickard Park in Des Moines or the Kansas City wide open course, to where they are these, I guess there's 3 courses. I forgot about the DGBT championship at Ivy Hill, but the golf course is definitely being phased out of the tour and being replaced with these specialized park venues, which, I think the Kansas City Open venue is kind of that is the future of disc golf, and Des Moines is the future of disc golf. So where you're combining open air and the woods, it's still a tough watch in the sense that someone will throw a shot and it's like, well, have to wait to see if that's good or not, especially with the way they did the OB, where it was just painted. You couldn't really tell where OB lines were. So while it was entertaining, I think the wind had a lot to do with that. I think if there was no wind, it wouldn't be nearly as exciting. But it was just, as a viewer, I don't know. It doesn't do it for me, but as an East Coast guy, maybe I'm a bit biased and I can acknowledge that.
Yeah, I was going to say that being from the Northeast, it's definitely a tougher take to swallow there. No doubt about that. Brodie, what do you think about this? Do you think that are you very much pro this against the Woods, or do you think there's still a place there?
Well, I mean, I agree with Mike in the sense that, this major does need something, or it's going to turn into the PGA championships over in golf, where it's just like no one really cares about that major. Everyone wants to win all the other 3. And it'll fall into the same suit because, USDGC has its thing, Worlds obviously has its thing, and then European Open has its thing. So those are all pretty much locked in on what those are. This one's the one that kind of is floating around and we're all questioning it. So I do think it needs to probably go back to the Woods, because that's the easiest way of just being like, hey, this we play the hardest wooded courses, deal with it. But as far as the course goes, I think it did do a pretty good job. However, I agree with Ross too. This course desperately needs wind. I think we saw that in round 1. Paul did have an incredible round. He putted really well, but there's no way he's making all those putts from 40, 50, 60 feet with the wind we saw later in the week. And he's probably not running some of those as aggressive as he is if it is as windy as it was. So this course did desperately need wind. I think without it, I don't think it would have been as entertaining. Leonard, who I believe is the course designer out there, I do think he does a great job with the land that he's given. He makes a lot of drives and approaches. If you notice, it's not just so much you got to land it left and right. You also have to be worried about your distance, which we don't really see that often. And I hope more and more designers look at that. Now, if you could stop changing pars, I would love that. I hate seeing hole 2 be a par 3 and now it's a par 4. And then get rid of the bad drop zones. There's a couple really bad drop zones, and add some drop zones to the holes that need them, because there was some holes where it's like, oh, you went OB by 100 feet. Oh, here's a tap in par. We need to get rid of those things. This is a major. We shouldn't be having people tap in pars when they throw an absolutely terrible shot.
Yeah, the whichever hole was it, like 12 or 13 with the where there's right on the
13.
water.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're
That needs a drop
just
zone. You got to go to
skipping
FPO.
right past there. Yeah, that was pretty silly. And for those players that were missing that way to the right, and it's like, what are you doing? Like,
Same thing with like 17.
yeah,
Like 17's a hole. I don't like par 4 drop zones, but 17 is a hole that desperately needs one too. That
Yeah.
makes that shot so much more scarier when you know that if you go OB even after skipping inbounds, you don't have a tap in par.
Right. All right, Hunter, wrap it up for us. What do you think about Swenson Park? Do you think its ability to kind of hush those talks about the Wooded Major, give it a special argument there?
No. No, I think that did this venue make a statement that open courses with more OB will always make for better disc golf than the woods? Not at all. I think it almost made the opposite statement. To be honest with you, I think that what Ross and Brodie pointed out is exactly true. This course in this tournament got lucky there was wind. If you look at last year and the previous year's OTB Open, Isaac Robinson's not winning this thing at 26 under. Calvin got the 27 just last year. So realistically, this course should have played 10 strokes easier if you take the wind out. Because if you add 9 times 4, that's 36. That's 10 strokes better than Isaac. So we got lucky there was wind out there for what's supposed to be a tough major. The other thing this takes out of the game is scrambling and fairway hits. And frankly, when you're standing on the tee, a lot of times you don't really know. You can kind of spray and pray to a certain extent on several holes. There's tight areas where you're kind of supposed to be, but if you rip a hyzer or turn it over a little bit too much or whatever, versus wooded, there's one gap. There's one fairway. There's one clear objective. It's a very easy communication for people. And I think it's the roots of disc golf. Now, is it something that is great for spectators and stuff like that? Sure, we can argue that till we're blue in the face and you'll never beat open courses. But does it make for better disc golf? Absolutely not. No, because it takes scrambling out of the game, which is an art that so many players are good at and make their money on. And I think that just eliminating that is kind of silly to me. Scrambling in this case was just, did you throw OB and be able to save par? When we were looking at Paige Pierce's stats and stuff, the fairway hits or did you go OB or not? Like there was no real, if you're inbounds, you're in the fairway, you have a chance to get up and down. I didn't like that. I think the course was very well designed for what it was. I don't think it did a good job for this major, being that it should be the wooded major. And I definitely don't think it made a statement that open with OB is better than disc golf in the woods. I think it made a statement that open with OB plus the wind can kind of maybe play equally as hard as just woods.
Yeah. Would you say that like Winthrop Gold is dependent on wind?
No, but I think that Winthrop Gold is tighter in certain areas, and has different water carries, and the Winthrop Gold is just a completely different course. But I don't think that's necessarily dependent on wind, but I also don't think it's being compared to the woods as tightly as this one is.
Winthrop Gold is, I would probably say like twice as tight as far as fairways widths. And landing zones.
Yeah.
There was a lot there, and that was one of the reasons why we picked Paige for our pick. And a lot of people were like, "What the heck? This course is great for her. You can spray it off the tee and still advance a whole bunch up the course."
Yeah.
And so that is why the win was necessary, because we saw shots like, Paul fell victim to this, of where he threw some bad shots and the wind made him even worse.
Yeah.
And had there not been wind, I don't think he would have gotten punished as much as he did down the stretch there.
I genuinely think that if there wasn't wind, this isn't even close to a question. I think we would have been like, this is exactly why we didn't want to go out here. I think they probably realistically would have taken 40 under to win this tournament, maybe even more.
I thought so after the first round.
And the fact that it only got to 26 is crazy.
Yeah, that's fair to say. I think honestly what it showed me, and this is how I personally like to spectate disc golf, but like I found that just the right amount of wind in the open like that with the OB might be my favorite disc golf to watch, because I did love the way that it made players think in a way they normally just don't have to when you have to consider wind. And so I thought that was just a lot of fun to watch. Let's talk about that win in another respect here. So that win at Swenson Park made for some incredible drama, forcing players to think carefully about each shot, in particular on the putting green. For once, even 25-footers were no guarantee as players tried to anticipate the wind. Does this tell us that disc golf would indeed be more exciting if putting were tougher at the top level, maybe done so by shrinking the baskets per se? What do we think about this one, Ross?
Yeah, this is something I have believed since I started playing disc golf, that putting relative to golf is far too easy. I don't know if a marksman basket is necessarily the answer, but there has to be some sort of modification made to the basket for the pro scene. And kind of something I alluded to in an earlier answer of there being separate rules for the pro tour versus PDGA sanctioned events, A, B, C tiers. We just have to look at the pro game as different. The difference between me, a 940 rated player, and Gannon Burr, a 1040 whatever, is just, we're not even playing the same sport in some aspects. And I think we just need to acknowledge that and make the changes necessary to make the sport more interesting. Some people, the counter argument is aces and throw-ins, which I don't know. I don't know if that's necessarily a reason to keep the baskets as they are. Having 30 footers be just as scary for Gannon Burr, just as likely to be made for Gannon Burr as they are for me, that's exciting. That's something that I think a lot of people would be into, and it would also make the approach shots a lot more stressful. Sometimes you'll see on par fours where certain players can kind of break a hole and the upshot's so easy. Now, if you have to get to 15 feet or 5 feet for a tap in versus 20 feet, that just makes every shot a lot more exciting. It makes par threes more exciting to where now you can't just spray it and make the 45 footer as Ricky's kind of been famous for in the past of just spraying and then just draining it from everywhere. It would kind of take that style of golf away and not reward. It would reward better throwers as well as good putters.
Certainly. Yeah. Brodie, do you see eye to eye on this one or not quite?
Yeah. I think what Ross said at the very, very end there is the exact reason for this, is because right now putting is it's almost everything in the sport. It really is. It's such a huge thing. And I think it needs to be weighted differently based off of the other aspects of disc golf. You look at this course and a lot of the other courses, when we go back to the drop zones, like if you're a really good putter, you can save a par by throwing a terrible shot. I can't remember what hole it was. I can't remember if it was Paige or Paul. It was someone at the top, either an MPO or FPO. I can't remember. They didn't throw a single shot in bounds and they took a bogey. They threw OB on their first shot, went up, threw their second shot OB. And I'm talking about not even close, like OB, went to a drop zone, made the putt, bogey, walked off. And it's like, I'm not a big fan of that. I think they should be punished. So I think twofolds. One, we were all texting towards the end of the stretch there. And because it was windy, those putts at the end with Isaac on 16 and 17 were really, really, really like, oh my gosh, is he going to make this? Is he going to make this? And then on top of that, it now makes it to where if someone throws a shot that's 5 feet, people go nuts. If someone throws a shot that's 20 feet, it's going to be like, oh, wait a second. Where right now, both those shots on the Pro Tour are equal. Unless it's 40-mile-an-hour winds, a 20-foot shot and a 5-foot shot, same exact shot. And we need to figure out a way to make those different because those aren't the same shot.
Yeah. Hunter, are you on board with this one or kind of have a counter argument?
No, I'm on board with it, but I'm gonna make my argument to the people who might not see it this way. Maybe they didn't think for whatever reason this was more exciting or something. Let's just use logic. Let's not use an event. Let's not use people's opinion on how it was perceived. Let's just take it back to 1977 when the disc golf basket was invented. We got the gracious opportunity to see one of the original disc golf baskets, the Iron Maiden, out at Oak Grove. Let me tell you something about that basket. She's tiny. She's real small. Now, let me tell you about the Frisbees they were using back in 1977. They're big boys. They're basically ultra stars. So somehow in this sport, our discs have gotten drastically smaller and our targets have gotten drastically bigger. So even if you're against whatever logic we're using to get here, although I agree with every statement that's being made, I think it makes it much better. It's just not what disc golf was created to be. So if you're an old head and you're like, nah, these young whippersnappers don't know what they're talking about. Well, then this isn't what disc golf was ever supposed to be. You want to talk about getting the touch out of disc golf. It's not happening on the booming drives. It's happening on the putting green. That's where the touch has disappeared in disc golf. And that's where it originated. So I don't think only the basket should be smaller. I also think that we need to be focusing a lot more on our green design than on our hole design. I think that we need to make not just because the approaching is also such a big thing in disc golf that's way too easy. A pro can get up and down from 150 feet pretty much anywhere on the course. The greens have to make people think. There's got to be more danger on the greens. There's got to be more undulations causing rollaways. So yeah, the basket's got to get smaller and the greens have to have a lot more focus than tee shots.
I love firing that off as a me as just peak content. These whippersnappers, I'm just staring at blank beady eyes from a me. All right, Mike, wrap it up for us. You kind of in agreement here?
Yeah, I mean, we all agree that disc golf's harder in the wind, but we can't rely on that. I mean, we've seen courses, hot rounds go from 6 or 7 under to 14 or 15 under just because of lack of wind. So we definitely can't use that as a defense of a course. And if we could make a basket that was a little smaller but caught fairly, like I would be open to the idea of that. And actually, based on their own explanation of their tour, it'd be a perfect thing for someone like the Go Throw Tour to try out for a couple events and see how the players like it, see how it plays out. And I think that could potentially give us some good results. But I still think there's way better ways we can push the envelope before we worry about that. And if you want to make putting harder, you can add elevation, you can add more depth putts, but more importantly, greens that you have to think about, not just there's the pin, I'm going to throw right at it. Have it where you have to land away from the green, or, there is OB in a weird spot where you can't come at it from a certain angle instead of just getting to throw it up and tap it in. And I think no one's really saying what we could do. They're all kind of complaining about it, but we need to utilize OB. OB needs to be stroke and distance and just use it less and have hazards. As a golfer, I can tell you, even if you have a wide fairway, if there's OB on both sides, it's very scary because if you go OB, you're hitting from the same spot, losing a stroke. And it's okay to have it be hazard instead in some places and utilize hazard and OB with stroke and distance. But looking at hole 18 and Missy being up by 2 strokes and knowing she cannot lose because all she has to do is throw a big hyzer over the top, go out of bounds, tap and throw and put in the basket is terrible TV. Like if that's stroke and distance, now she actually has to have a skillful shot to win the tournament rather than just getting to lean on bad course design.
Yeah. I need to add something because I've been on my basketball grind for a little bit for those that know. And I'm a big Yak fan. Shout out to everyone that loves the Yak. They have a thing that they call the gauntlet where they run like celebrities and guests through a bunch of different sporting activities. And one of those sporting activities at the end is you have to make a 3-point shot. Then you have to run to the other side of the court and make another 3-point shot before you come in and do trivia. Now, I just looked up because I wanted to make sure a high school basketball 3-point shot is 19 feet and 9 inches. Okay. There are some people that stand there for minutes. I'm talking 5, 6, 7 minutes and aren't even close to making that shot. And there's also, remind you too, in the sport of basketball, there's also a defender trying to prohibit you from making it. My point being, I think I could take majority of random people off the street, which some of these people are athletes too, and they just like miss 20 3-pointers in a row. And you put them at 19 feet and 6 inches. I think they eventually get lucky. The target's big enough and catches decent enough that if you have someone just whirling a bunch of putts, I mean, heck, look at kids. When you give kids a disc for the first time and you just have them whirling it at the basket, eventually one's going to catch. My point being is it's too easy. It's just too easy. The target's way too big.
That may be the case, but why it kind of seems like an arbitrary. You're comparing a 19-footer to a 3-pointer because there's no NBA players that are shooting 89% from 3. Like you'd have to have the putt be further back to make that comparison. And I think one reason golf is
a 20-footer should be more challenging though. Like I would love to see a 20-footer be more in like the 60% range in disc golf, like maybe a 25-footer.
Sure. I think the problem, my one problem with that, when there are so many other avenues to make disc golf harder right now, is one of the charms of golf and disc golf too is like you are on the same equipment as pros are. You're getting to putt on the same things, or you're using the same discs, using the same clubs, kind of, not really, but. And so I think to change that, I think does take the charm away from disc golf a little bit. So if there's other ways to fix it first.
Why would you want to just change that across the board though?
They can't do that.
It would be, that is one of the biggest, probably one of the biggest things that's held them back. Because obviously a lot of courses.
You think people would literally stop playing disc golf?
No,
Someone that loves disc golf would say, I'm not playing anymore because these baskets are too small.
No, it would just be a weird disconnect that wouldn't be ideal.
Just for a few years, and then all of a sudden, that's just the norm.
I don't know.
Imagine
in
how
golf,
crazy do you think it was when they cut bottom of the peach basket off. I bet that blew people's mind. I bet some people were pissed
He is on his
about
basketball
that.
ground.
In golf, though, are we really? I mean, I guess optically we're playing the same, but like from what I understand, if you put me on a PGA Tour green, I'm never making a putt.
Right, but optically, I think that's the
But
key
optically,
there.
we'd still be throwing
Like the
into
hole
a
is the same
basket.
size.
Like I don't know.
The speeds. I mean,
the
that's
fact
a
that-
good example. The speeds are completely different on tour versus
The fact that I am basketball and playing from a high school 3-point line and Steph Curry's throwing from 4 feet behind me has never deterred me from playing basketball.
Yeah, I don't know that it would be detrimental.
It wouldn't.
It would more so. It would be a little weird that in disc golf, if let's say they went to a marksman basket, there's a world, very realistically, where I am now a better 20-foot putter than some of the best putters in the world.
But you're telling me that doesn't happen in golf?
No.
Well, like I'm saying, because like there's
even
no
with the
one,
greens being difficult. No.
there's no
No,
one
it
that you're
happens
like,
in basketball. There's plenty of people that are better free throw shooters than basketball players. What are we talking about, guys? Yes, there are people that aren't professional athletes that are better at specific things in their sport than people in the league. But that's across every sport.
Yeah.
I think
there are better putters
I'm
that
just
are
saying,
not
if
on
the PGA
tour.
Tour greens are as hard as it's been said, there's got to be guys at your local club that are better putters.
Yes, there
Just
are. There are people that are better putters than people that are pros in golf.
Yeah, that makes
That's-
perfect
that's
sense.
not-
Yeah, but I
crazy
guess
to
what I'm
think
saying is
about.
it would be pretty, if they went to a marksman basket, it might be pretty easy
I
to
don't
be a
think
better
so.
putter.
I think that the pros would be. I think the top pros would still
They're
be
gonna be
80, 90%
practicing
at 20
more.
feet or 25 feet.
They're
Like
gonna
they can paint the pole.
There's going to be very few people
Some
that
of
are
them can.
better. There are people that are better, but they're going to be very few and far in between.
I think what Mike and Hunter said about changing the physical landscape of greens is really the answer. I think it's a temporary. I don't want the other world's course this year in Finland, where they have a few of those holes where the baskets are literally on these massive man-made mounds. That's just like so unrealistic for disc golf, though. That would be the future if we had tens of millions of dollars to bring in heavy equipment and alter the landscape, which is just not the reality. And you
just
while
need
that
a
is
few
like
good men, Ross.
listen,
make some
I'll
mounds.
get out there and start shoveling it if someone gives me some dirt. But that really is, I think the answer is making greens like that. But like, how realistic is that?
How about
That's why-
mozzarella sticks?
That's why you have.
USDGC.
That's why a lot of the times the good greens come from golf courses because they have those mounds, they have those undulations, they have bunkers, they have stuff already in place for golf that you can kind of, if you're a good designer, you can kind of use those for disc golf. Where
I mean,
if you play in a park, I'm thinking of like Des Moines, for example. I love Des Moines. I'm trying to think. I don't think there's that many good greens in Des Moines. If
Kansas
you think
City
about it,
a few weeks ago had some good greens where they did a lot of. You can tell they put a lot of manpower into changing.
if they do
you
you have to do manpower. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Without doing the manpower, without moving dirt, it's gonna be very hard to just naturally say like, oh, look how great this green is in a lot of these places.
I just feel like that. I do agree that like, I don't think that's an easier solution because I think the Pro Tour just having standard small baskets, boom, we fixed it. But I do think that is a better solution in regards to right now. You very rarely have to think about what side of the basket do I need to put this upshot on, what side of the basket even we played course North Cove. I don't know if it's going to still be there, but there were some greens where like there were rocks and stuff where if you were deep of the basket, you might not even be able to see the basket to putt back at it. Like you had to leave it short right or short left. And I think that's something you just never have to see in disc golf. And it's like, that's the type of stuff we need where you can't just chuck it up there. And as long as I'm within 25 feet, I have a wide open putt. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Talking about, I believe it was hole 12. We talked about earlier, the par 3, I believe it was with the water all around it. Hey, I know we all love our Disc Golf Network commentators, but I do have to throw them under the bus. If you throw a shot and it goes OB long, that was not a good shot. Like a good shot there is short of the basket. OB's long.
Yeah.
Everyone there should be trying to land 25 feet. And if someone goes OB long, you can't be like, oh, that's so unlucky. That was such a good shot. No, it wasn't. The spot is short of the basket.
Yeah, it didn't change.
Anything that's not short of the basket is a bad shot. You missed your landing zone by 40 feet. Bad shot.
Yeah.
Enough said.
We're just not used to it in disc golf.
Enough said.
No. Bad break, though.
Yeah, we'll see.
Unfortunate course design, actually.
There it is.
Yeah,
There
it's
it is.
true. Very true. President approved. All right, let's get into our final topic here. Hunter. Brodie. Let's talk a little bit about Isaac, the other champ that we didn't get to yet. So Isaac Robinson has just won his 4th major, cementing himself as one of the most accomplished male players in our sport's history. Where does he now rank on your all-time list? If he continues to win majors without hardly ever winning other tour events, is that ever counted against him at all? Hunter, you're a more recent champ. Do you want to go first or second?
I'd like to go first. I think you always want to go
Thank
first.
goodness, yes.
Oh, okay. Go
if
for
he
it.
has the same answers as me, I will concede.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so I was looking at this, and I think the first place I went is probably the first place most people would go, which is the UDisc number of major wins in the Open division. First off, props to UDisc, already updated. Isaac's already in that 4 category. Way to go. Anyways, I was looking at this, and when you're looking, there's some obvious ones that are going to be ahead of him. Ken Climo, Paul McBeth, Ricky Wysocki, Barry Schultz. I think that no one's questioning that. Nate Doss, you can't really question 7 majors. He's got to be ahead of him. Does it pass the eye test? No, not at all. But it passes the stat test. So now you're into the group of 4s, right? You have Nate Doss, you have Isaac Robinson, you have Will Schustrick. But you go a little bit farther down, you got Gannon Burr in the group of 3s. You got to put Gannon Burr above Isaac. Only 3 majors, but the dude has 9 Pro Tour wins last year alone, or 9 wins on the tour last year alone. Isaac only has 1 win outside of majors. So Gannon being 1 major behind with an absolute slew of Pro Tour / Elite Series wins has to go above him. Nate Doss, tied with him in majors, has more than enough national tour wins, which are the same as Elite Series wins, to go ahead of him, which lands Isaac Robinson ahead of Will Schustrick at 8th all time on my list. I think he's ahead of Will Schustrick because Will has 4 all-time majors, some of them more prestigious, but only 2 national tour wins all time. So I think that does play in where they're tied there, but Will just doesn't have the world title, and we have to value worlds at some point, given that, that's just how the sport's always been. It's always the title that's most coveted. I think that Schustrick obviously is going to say he wanted USDGC more because, well, the guy won it 3 times. But I think if we're really looking at what would have changed his career and his life a little bit more, it would have been Worlds. And Isaac Robinson's got 2 of them. So he's got to be ahead of Will Schustrick. I think you can make an argument for him to go up to 7 above Gannon Burr, but I'm not going to make that argument. I think that Gannon Burr, we've seen him head-to-head too many times that Gannon's got to be ahead of him. So number 8 all time.
So you said Doss twice. I think you meant Feldberg on the 7 majors.
Feldberg has 7, yes.
Okay.
I meant Feldberg.
Just making sure. Okay. Brodie, any differences? I feel like there's maybe room.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to talk here, and I'll take the easy dub from Hunter.
Okay.
So looking at the question again, I'm reading this not on who's this most skilled, who's the best disc golfer. The words that you have in here is most accomplished male players in our sports history. Where does he rank on your all-time list? So I'm going accomplishments, but the big key here is I got to put an asterisk because he's talking about Will Schustrick, who won USDGC events back when FPO players were playing and cashing. So I got to put some sort of asterisk here because I think if you go far enough back, I watched Nate Doss. Hey, say what you want about the guy. The guy couldn't putt. He really struggled at putting. To me, that's tough to watch someone win certain tournaments and struggling down the stretch putting. So, same thing with Evelina and something like that. So I put a lot more asterisks on the older players just because the sport wasn't really developed. And I think moving forward, I think that will kind of even itself out because even when we start talking about majors and stuff, some of these majors these people are playing, there's 12 people. There's 12 people in the event, right? And they're a major champion. So with that being said, my list is pretty simple. I actually have Ken Climo up top. Main reason for this is because I have seen this guy play in person. This guy is the real deal. He played those first, I've only watched the first couple holes at USDGC. He played it in the same layout as everyone else. The dude is the real freaking deal. So I have him as number 1. I think number 2 is an easy Paul McBeth at number 2. I'm going with Ricky Wysocki as my number 3. And I'm setting Isaac right there at number 4. I'm saying Isaac right there at number 4 because the dude, here's the thing. When you win majors, no one ever asks you, hey, man, when are you going to win your next Elite Series event? But you know what people do ask you? Hey, man, You keep winning Elite Series. You keep winning all these events. When are you actually going to win a major?
It's true.
That's what people ask. And down the road, people are going to look at Isaac and be like, he won 12 majors. Not, he won 12 majors, but he only won 3 times on tour. No one gives a rip.
Hunter just did that to 2 guys.
Yeah, and no one gives a rip. No one gives a rip.
Well, to be fair, he is not a person. He is a me.
I only
so.
did that to Shoestrick, I believe.
It's majors. It's not how many times you win on tour.
I will say, to counter Brodie's point, Nate Doss, as recently as 2017, has beaten and won a tournament with a 2017 Ricky Wysocki, Simon Lizotte, Nate Sexton, Eagle McMahon, Jeremy Coley, Nico Castro. The list goes. Paul was in the field, but he DNF'd in that field. So Nate Doss has won in the modern era as well.
2017?
The 2017 Ricky Wysocki is arguably better than modern day Ricky. Nate Sexton was better back then.
That's for another time.
When you say stuff
like
that.
That's for another time.
You're literally so dumb when you say stuff like
that. That's for another time.
Players don't get bad when they're like 32, 33 years old.
I'm just saying, he hasn't won a major since that year. That's the last
I
year Ricky won a major.
It's because there's a lot better players.
You ranked him above him. I'm just saying.
I respect your courage to make that ranking, Brodie. I do think 4th is a little egregious.
Who do you have above him?
What?
Who do you have above him?
I would have Doss above him. And I.
Well, it's also crazy to make that whole argument and then put Ken Climo top of your list.
Yeah, I mean,
what are we doing?
Yeah, because I literally have watched Ken Climo play, and the guy
Doss has been more competitive more recently than Ken Climo.
How'd Doss do when he came back on tour after practicing a whole bunch? How'd he do, Hunter?
How did Ken Climo do when he came back on tour after practicing a whole bunch? He didn't. His back doesn't let him. Like that doesn't hold up.
I think he shot 5 under on the 7 holes he played
in an exhibition match
at USDGC.
Let's see him get to 18 at USDGC.
The Ken Climo is the only one that breaks through the asterisk because he beat everyone multiple times consistently.
Has 3 worlds.
And the guy is.
He beat everyone multiple times. I'm not arguing for Avery Jenkins.
Yeah, he has one more worlds than Isaac does.
Yeah, so I put him 1 above him.
Fair enough. Interesting. I'd like to hear people's opinion in the comments.
Gets the asterisks for me.
I think Isaac is a very unique. He's won all his majors really fast. He's only got 1 Pro Tour Elite Series win. So I think he's a very unique player for this argument, especially when you mix in the old players. Mike, what do you think?
Isaac has the 3rd highest win percentage in majors all time.
The other thing. Wow, I have a number.
Minimum how many starts?
Ken Climo's won more majors than Isaac's ever seen the start of.
Hunter, the last question I have for you is when you saw Isaac Robinson, you literally were just like, okay, this guy's gonna win, right? There's points that you've texted that, you've said that.
Yeah.
Do you feel that same way with Nate Doss back in the day?
Yes.
With that putt? I gotta send you a clip, man. I gotta send you a clip.
He's a 3-time major winner.
I gotta send you a clip of him missing.
A 4-time major winner.
I gotta send you a clip of him missing a 10-footer.
I gotta send you a Nate Doss slander piece.
I gotta send you this
clip. The all-time winning stat. Ken Climo was finishing majors and changing Isaac Robinson's diapers afterwards. Like the all-time winning stat, the dude's barely been playing majors. Paul probably held that back in 2015.
My point with Ken Climo is I watched the guy play in person. The guy is filthy. Also, Barry Schultz, also filthy in person.
Where was he on your list?
I think I got to put him at probably like 5 or 6.
Yeah, I would have had Barry above Isaac as well.
Fly, Barry, fly. And then if you're talking that, well, Feldberg went toe-to-toe with Barry. That's the other thing is some of these guys went toe-to-toe with the guys you're saying I've seen in person and were dirty.
It is true. Barry and Kenny went toe-to-toe quite a bit.
I'm saying Barry's very good. I don't have him above Isaac.
12 worlds.
That's crazy.
I don't have him above Isaac.
Anywho, a lot to discuss there. I want to hear the comments. Sound off. Let's vote up those comments you agree with. Maybe it'll be a top comment next week. We can get the conclusion of this. But where do you place Isaac on your list? Give your reasoning. I think he's a very polarizing player for this argument. And if you've got topics to submit, go ahead and scan the QR code here on the screen. Get some fun topics in there. We didn't get a ton of topics this last week submitted. I think people probably knew what was coming. We had plenty to talk about, but we have another off week coming up. So throw them in there, as creative, as fun as you want, maybe even expand on some of the things we've already talked about. And I will look forward to going over them and hopefully throwing some in next week. That'll do it. We'll see you then.